It's a pleasure to have you here with us today, Mr. Martin. Thank you so much.
Pleasure's all mine.
And you are here specifically for this event that you are taking part in today. We Stand Together, an initiative to raise awareness about Aboriginal issues. And it's very interesting for you to do this because Aboriginal issues were very dear to you during your time as Prime Minister of Canada.
Yes, they certainly were. It really started when I was about 17 or 18. And it's been that way all my life. And the fact is, the opportunity for the foundation that I started in terms of Aboriginal education to get together with the Kielburger brothers and we the children to do this is remarkable, because the effect on young students it's been really quite wonderful to see.
Mr. Martin, what are some of the gaps that we see in the Aboriginal education system that need to be corrected?
Well, the most important is the underfunding of education on reserve compared to what funding for grade schools and high schools is off reserve.
Right.
And that obviously means teachers aren't well paid, therefore there's a turnover. But the other big problem is the lack of history of Aboriginal Canada. I mean, we don't teach history very well in this country at all, but we don't teach Aboriginal history at all. And what We Stand Together is essentially all about is a 2-week course in terms of Aboriginal history or Aboriginal relations. And we're now in over 860 schools across the country. It's been a tremendous, tremendous result.
Now, why is it important for young Canadians to know Aboriginal history?
Why is it important for Canadians to know their own history? And the fact is that Aboriginal history is an essential part of our history. You know, I mean, there are people who've come from all over the world, but the fact is that if it were not for the First Nations, the Métis Nation, and the Inuit, this country would be very different. And I believe not as open, not as generous as we are.
Do you think we would be at a different place right now if the Kelowna Accord, which you worked very hard on during your time as Prime Minister, do you think we would be at a different place right now if that had gone through?
There's no doubt about it. What happened, there's the gaps in funding that I just talked about in education, in healthcare, in child welfare, as an example. Kelowna Accord would have wiped those gaps out so that the funding would have been accurate, and we would have had it now for the last decades. You just think about this. When we had the Kelowna Accord, a child going into grade 6 would have, grade 1 at the age of 6, would have had a fully funded education all through primary school. And then they'd be now going to high school. Those kids have missed out. Yes, we've lost an enormous amount.
You were absolutely disappointed in the Conservatives' native education policy. Now that we have a Trudeau government in power, a Liberal government in power, do you have more hope when it comes to Aboriginal education?
Oh, without any shadow of a doubt. And this is, I'm not talking politically here. I have spent a lot of time with the Prime Minister, primarily before he became Prime Minister. He is genuinely interested in this issue. His Minister, Carolyn Bennett, has been at it for certainly the last 15 years. There's an enormous amount of knowledge built up. And I can tell you that this government feels as strongly about it as I do.
Mr. Martin, is there some education curriculum that needs to change as well? Funding is one thing, but are there some other gaps that you're looking into as well?
Oh, sure. Because of the lack of funding, an awful lot of the courses that are available in regular public schools are not available. If kids with disabilities, as an example, kids who need special math help, is another example. But we've just completed a very successful literacy program. If you can't read or write by the end of grade 3, the numbers show you may not graduate from high school.
Right.
And so we brought in a literacy program that's had remarkable results. And that's the kind of thing that when you focus on Aboriginal education, you can do.
Now, speaking of Aboriginal issues, of course, the economy is also another big issue facing this country. We touched on the Trudeau government. What do you think we're on a good course now when it comes to the economy? Is Trudeau heading this country in the right direction?
Yes, he is. We shouldn't kid ourselves. The global economy is in very tough shape. And I think that we've got a rough couple of years, 2 to 3 years ahead of us. This is in terms of the global economy. What every solid economist will tell you is this is the time to invest in infrastructure, it's the time to invest in education, because interest rates are low, and this is the time to do it. We need better infrastructure. Those of us in Montreal certainly understand.
Yes, we certainly know that, Mr. Martin.
So
there's no doubt.
What the Trudeau government is doing is it's investing in those things that are going to get the economy going, like infrastructure, like education, and that's exactly what the country needs.
I think probably the biggest surprise with the low dollar is exports. We haven't seen a lot of action when it comes to, and that's usually what seems to happen when we have a low dollar. Are there any reasons for that, like for the the average day we don't really realize what those reasons might be.
Well, no, I think the real problem is the global economy.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact is that Europe is a bit of a basket case. We've seen that. The United States economy is picking up, but nowhere near at the extent that it has to absorb those exports. So we really got to get consumer spending going, and that is the big debate in the year. And that's what brings me back to the point that you made. The fact is that if governments around the world are prepared to invest in infrastructure, that will really get the economy going. Unfortunately, the Europeans are not doing it the way that they should, and we've seen the Chinese economy, which is now very important, slowing down.
I want to ask you, because you just had your official portrait unveiled on Parliament. This must be, what was that like for you? It must have been a big moment.
Well, it was certainly an emotional moment.
Yeah.
It was a tremendous unveiling. I had friends from right across the country came, former members of Parliament came and were mingling with the new members of Parliament, and it was really, and my close male friends tell me how awful I looked, and all my women friends being nice.
Are you happy with it? That's what counts.
Yes.
Well, and it's so great to see you partnering up with Craig Kielburger. This is such an important thing for people to discuss right across the country. Not even just young people, but certainly everybody across.
Well, I know that Craig is going to be on in a minute. Let me just say to you, as a Canadian, that the Kielburger brothers, who started this very, very young, are really an example for all, in my opinion, all young Canadians. When we talk about what we're going to be doing with Aboriginal students, Aboriginal Canadians, I'd like to see every Canadian emulate the Kielburger brothers.
I couldn't agree more. What a great piece to end on. Thank you so much, Mr.